I'm gonna have to begin the thing. So, this is the beginning of it. Welcome to the Film Review Podcast, the podcast where we review the films.
I have very generic opinions.
Yes, that is a film we all like.
Star Wars is fun.
Wow, we really couldn't keep that up very long.
No.
Only joking, viewers. That was a callback joke to last week. But no, we are the same effervescent duo engaging in skullduggery to stave off the inevitable conceptual battle against our own narcissism.
I never agreed to any form of skullduggery.
Well, that's what you're getting. Lots and lots of that. So, what have you brought for us this week, Phil?
I've prepared nothing.
You bastard.
Yeah, I would say it was a busy week, but it wasn't.
Do you know what I've brought?
What have you brought?
Scorn!
Scorn!
Scorn for my co-host. That is you.
Yeah, that is me. And I feel thoroughly scorned.
So I guess I didn't bring anything either.
We have the recrimination section on the podcast. I found one recrimination.
Oh, no, wait. I did bring something. I did bring something to the podcast.
What did you bring?
Jelly.
Jelly.
I'm having a bit of jelly, thanks. See, look. Wobble, wibble, wobble. Right. You know why jelly is good?
I don't think it's very good for audio. It sounds disgusting.
Did that sound like someone's brain falling out and like rolling along the carpet?
Yeah, it sounded like if you've ever seen someone cough their lung out. That's pretty much what it sounded like.
No, that is not why it is good.
Why is jelly good?
Shapes!
It's one of the few food that you can mould into different shapes.
It can be shapes!
Yeah. It's pretty much jelly and mashed potato you can do that with.
Oh no, if you do that with mashed potato, you get funny looks and your family thinks that you've gone crazy.
And you get thrown out of the carvery.
Damn right. But it can be lots of shapes. Circle, house shape, turtle.
The famous 80s rabbit.
All the shapes.
Yeah.
Do you know what shape my jelly is?
I don't even want to begin trying to guess.
Measuring jug.
Measuring jug shaped jelly.
Measuring jug shaped jelly.
The most classic of all the jelly shapes.
Yeah, you can tell I didn't get very far with the mould of any kind. It was literally just, oh well, it's in a container, so...
Jelly is a weird thing in that those are the shapes that it comes in, where it's like circle or bowl or rabbit. Like, whose idea was putting jelly in the shape of a rabbit?
I thought blancmange traditionally came in the shape of a rabbit.
I have had many jellies that have been rabbit-shaped in my time.
Are you sure you just weren't accidentally using a blancmange mould?
I mean, I was in an institution at the time.
What is blancmange?
It's like jelly with milk in it, I think.
That sounds fucking awful.
I literally made that up. I don't know what blancmange is. I used to think it was some kind of sponge pudding. Then I think there was definitely one point in my life where I believed that blancmange was almost like haggis. And now I just don't even know. I think the desire to understand what blancmange is left me at a very early age.
I was going to make an abandonment joke there, but that just made me feel sad.
Yeah. Well.
Anyway, Phil.
Hello.
I am excited.
What are you excited for?
I've had 2 cups of coffee today.
For the whole day?
Yeah.
You lightweight.
I know. I don't get on with caffeine very well.
Are you one of these people that has 2 cups of coffee and then is just in the future?
Yeah, I'm sort of like, I'm shaking a lot, like my legs are going up and down. There might be a lot of rattling on the audio. That is my teeth in my head.
I've had about the same amount of coffee as you today, but I have also... I was judged for this. I had 2 large chocolate bars.
How large?
Well, like normal size. I had I don't want to say brand names because we're not getting paid for the advertising for it. I had some form of chunky version of otherwise small wafer-based chocolate, which included nut butter of some kind. And I also had a caramelled chocolate treat. I believe that's what they're called.
How big, though? Was this sort of like the size of your leg? Could, like, kill a small dog if you hit it with it? Or, are we talking sort of like something you'd get at like the bottom of a goodie bag at a party and feel just a little bit ripped off.
I mean, I think I probably could kill a dog with one, but I'm very aggressive towards dogs, so that doesn't really give you any indication of the size.
Were you thinking of doing the old sort of like place one end at the eye socket and then give it a good palm plant right on the other end and see how far you could drive it in?
I can honestly say I haven't really thought about killing a dog with a chocolate bar as in depth as you clearly have.
Well, actually, now this I'm probably going to have to all cut out because...
Because what even is this?
Well, one, but also because I'm about to make a reference to something. But I have been reading a comic book.
A comic book?
A comic book. I think you may have told me about this at one point, but I did that thing where you told me about something and I went, oh, yeah, and then erased it from my mind and then encountered it again and am only now realising when I'm going to tell you about something that you probably already told me about.
It does regularly happen where I recommend something to you and then 3 years later you recommend it to me.
Have you heard of a comic book called Crossed?
No, I haven't. You didn't. I didn't tell you about this one.
It is the most horrific thing I've ever read. It is amazing. Every other page, it just has scenes of incredible gore and depravity and violent sexual orgies and encounters. There's a lot of things being pulled apart and inserted and torn and broken and spurted, and I'm amazed that it can even exist. But it does mean that I'm having some very dark thoughts lately because it's sort of got into my head in a bad way. So
yeah,
when we were talking about the dog and the chocolate bar, immediately scenes of punctured eye sockets and how you could go about doing something horrific to a living thing just flooded my mind. I don't recommend it.
No.
In the first issue, I think it might even be on the first page, it has a long-haired man with a beard, completely naked, standing off the coast holding a dolphin and fucking its blowhole to death.
I mean, just what's a dolphin's blowhole ever done to you? And who finds that attractive?
I think it's like an act of just the worst thing that can be done.
I'm sorry, are you telling me that this was not an act of love? I am shocked. I am shocked that you are telling me about some form of sexual intercourse that was not an act of love. Was he married to the dolphin's blowhole? Is he living in sin with the dolphin? Because this sounds like the most disgraceful comic book I've ever heard of.
It doesn't reflect well on my character, does it?
No, it doesn't. I know you to a point where I feel like you may have just made this comic book up.
That is a possibility, and we'll get to making things up in my head later. That might be a regular thing that we do, where we go through things that my brain has come up with, other than this podcast, which came out of my brain.
It would be a horrifying descent into the yawning pit of madness that is your brain.
And talking about the podcast, because I realise that we've deviated quite heavily from where we began, I've made a decision.
That can never be a good thing.
It can sometimes be an okay thing.
Rarely.
We are not going to dwell on what this podcast is any longer. Week to week, we talk about where are we, what are we doing, all those things are fine, but then we inevitably talk about the nature of the podcast and what purpose are we trying to achieve. No longer shall we speak of this. It reeks of insecurity and suggests that we question our life choices, which is not something I would recommend anyone does ever.
I don't believe that I have spent that much time dwelling on what this podcast is. That seems to be your concern. From episode 1, where you sort of put a hood on my head, threw me into the back of a van and drove me into a podcast studio and said, "We're doing a podcast." And I said, "I don't know you." And then you forced me to talk about things. There was a knife pointed at my genitals. You were doing unspeakable things to a dolphin. And it was just a very threatening situation. But I have learnt to just go with it and not question what is happening during this podcast.
I'm glad that we are all on the same page. Never question the place you're in, the direction you're going, what is happening to you, why it's happening to you, who is doing this to you. Never question these things. Don't think about it. Just knuckle down, jump in, teeth bared, dick in.
I mean, I did say all of that in the vague hope that you would remove the knife that its tip is now pressing into one of my testicles.
Anyway, we are no longer going to dwell on the podcast, or at least I shall try not to. And this podcast from now on is just, it just is. It just is how it is, and will continue to be.
Quality irrelevant. It just is.
That could be the preamble. That could be the little bit at the beginning of it. Oh, no, I'm ruining it now by talking about that. Fuck off! Okay, right, we are broadcasting to you now from several unrevealed locations in and or around Basingstoke or something. Can you guess where we are? Don't. Okay? Because, I mean, an unfortunate someone lost their life last time that happened, so let's not repeat that mistake.
Yep, that dolphin's never going to walk straight again.
Damn right.
They don't really walk anyway. I don't know why I said that. Have you seen my walking dolphin?
Oh, God. Is this some weird, puppetry that you've engineered with, sticks and pulleys and tape and stuff? Have you got this weird sort of cheaply made skeletal apparatus that you wrapped around some poor dolphin that you are forcing to stagger across the land?
I would try and defend myself, but you've got me banged to rights there. That's exactly what I'm doing. It's weird that you knew.
Phil, it seems like half a lifetime ago now, but you said something about recriminations and sentiments, right? Got any?
Yes, I have one recrimination.
Shit. Okay.
I'll say right off, it's not a good one. You know, some of them, there's something to take away from it. This one is not like that at all. I'm just going to have to go ahead and read it, really, aren't I? Quality irrelevant, made my dog sick itself inside out. So, I mean, it's not great, really, is it?
Can we be blamed for that? I mean, in a court of law?
Undoubtedly.
Shit. I'm not up on my dog law as I used to be.
You know, you're lucky that you're on a podcast with a world-renowned dog lawyer. As far as I'm aware, if the dog is a newborn and the only exposure to the outside world that it has experienced is listening to this podcast, and then it immediately vomits so hard that it turns inside out, that is pretty much on us, really.
Can we, put it back in?
We can try doing a better podcast, to do a podcast that's so good it turns a dog the right way out again.
That might be a top runner for the episode title right there. A podcast so good it can turn a dog the right way back inside again, or whatever it was.
It felt like there were too many words in that sentence.
Yeah, I sort of got lost in word salad.
A word salad. A 7-layer word salad.
Yeah.
Had alphabetti spaghetti on top. It's just no good.
I had this idea.
The idea of putting alphabetti spaghetti on a salad.
No, of using brain power for better things.
Is this a scheme?
We are moving into the schemes section.
Because we had one horrific recrimination and that was it.
Yeah, I mean, do you have any positive sentiments?
I've just looked, I have seen another one. All it says is this podcast is AIDS. I don't know if that's positive.
Is that marketable?
The AIDS podcast. This podcast lowers your immune system. Is that a good thing?
I suppose people may play it to elderly relatives that they want knocked off soon for a bit of extra cash.
Yeah.
Now that is a market. That is a market waiting to be cornered right there. Media that is produced with the primary purpose to off certain vulnerable members of society.
It's a niche, and we do need to find our niche at some point.
I don't think we should. I think we should change our niche every week.
Is that one of the podcast rules?
I forgot about the rules. Have you looked at the rules? I haven't looked at the rules in a long time.
I'm looking at them right now. I'm just going to put, we should never have a niche.
I think we can pretty much guarantee that that's never going to occur.
What, having a niche or not having a niche? Because knowing our luck, we'll plan to not have a niche, and in doing that, we'll find our niche.
I hate our podcast.
I'm growing to hate it as well. I mean, I hated it to begin with, what with the Bowie knife sort of jammed into my gentleman's area.
Yeah, that wasn't very friendly, was it?
I grew to love it. It was a form of Stockholm syndrome, I think. Now I hate it.
Anyway, I'm glad we're on the same page. And speaking of pages, I own a book.
A single book.
Well, I have many books, but this is a special book.
Why is it a special book? Is it magic?
It is a little bit magic. It's got some magic in there.
Have you somehow picked up at maybe a second-hand bookstore, perhaps an antique bookstore? Have you accidentally picked up the Necronomicon?
I wish, because that would be more interesting than what I'm actually going to talk about.
Oh, it's Mein Kampf, isn't it?
No, even then, that's got a lot more substance and, some real strong guidelines for life in there. No, instead, this is far more upsetting.
Okay.
It is a book that I write in.
Oh, good lord.
Sometimes, in the past, I have had trouble sleeping. This is something that our generation, anyone who participates in the modern world, this is a common occurrence. Insomnia and sleep deprivation of various forms. And a popular way to get around this is to start writing things down. When your mind is racing and racing and racing and racing, you're trying to sleep and you're trying to sleep and you can't, and you're thinking about stuff and ideas and thoughts and sensations are flashing through your mind, as opposed to every other stage of the day when you are essentially brain dead, borderline comatose or catatonic. As soon as you lay your head down to rest, things just start flying through there. New concepts and ideas and colours and thoughts just fling themselves at you. And so what can help with this is to write stuff down. So ideally, you'd have something by your nightstand or, whatever, maybe on the floor next to you if you're the type who sleeps on one of those mattresses in the corner of a room covered in rubbish. Or even if you don't have a home, if the closest thing to write on is your own thigh.
Or sometimes you can just reach for the bell on your bedside table and then your butler will bring your dream book in.
Jesus, I didn't think that we'd have anyone in that position. But now I think about it, it might just be old mental cases who listen to this in their stately homes.
Yeah, in their stately homes that have absolutely no furniture in them, but they still have a butler.
Is the butler imaginary, or are they just very, very loyal?
Some say that the butler died 25 years ago, but nobody really knows.
I love how you immediately just slipped into you work at the local pub and you've been asked this question by a traveller and you're going to spin them a tale. So some say, and by some you mean I'm making it up.
I just make that sort of stuff up because I don't like people who aren't from round here.
Who does? Anyway, the book. So there is a book that I write in sometimes. The purpose of the book is to write whatever it is in your head. Just write it down, get it out, and the act of writing, the act of expressing it, removes the burden of having to think about it from your brain. There's something very cathartic about writing it down. You don't even have to really be all that conscious of what is going on. You just do the act of writing, and whatever is in your mind gets filtered out, and you don't think about it so obsessively anymore. In some cases, you even forget about it. And especially in my case, where I'm very, very tired when I write in this book. And so, these aren't dreams so much. This is stuff that is going on in my head, the noise and the clamour of what's going on in my mind when I'm trying to sleep. So I just write it down, just bip, bap, bop, and then it's all down, and then I don't have to think about it anymore.
I enjoy the fact that it has taken you probably about 10 minutes to explain that this is a book that you write in when you can't sleep.
Well, if I wasn't verbose and over the top, who the fuck would I be?
And also, I suppose we've got to pad this podcast out somehow. Neither of us prepared anything. It would be about 3.5 minutes long if we just went with what we've got. So I apologise for interrupting. Please continue rambling almost nonsensically about your dream or not dream book.
Okay, so in my not dream book, which I think needs a better name, I have a series of ideas that have accumulated over time, but I've never gone back through and read them. So I thought now would be a good time, because I agree with you. Speaking of your dreams, is fucking self-indulgent and boring.
Yeah.
If you're the type of person who talks to other people about your dreams, fuck you.
A dream is essentially like your brain just farting in the middle of the night. If you talked about your own farts in the same way that you talk about dreams, the people would just move away from you on the bus, I think.
Exactly. So don't talk about your dreams. Talk about your pre-dream thoughts. That's perfectly valid and acceptable, because that's where your creative mind lives. Or at least that's where mine lives, or it must live, because I haven't found it any other fucking place.
I keep mine in a box.
Well, yeah, don't let it out.
It's like Pandora's box. If I let it out, then just all of the horror in the known universe will flood into the world.
Yeah. I mean, if you keep it on a strict diet of scotch and whores, then you could become a very good writer. I hear that's how most of them seem to live.
I feel like I would end up being sort of like a hard-bitten detective novelist. And I feel like those have...
Hackneyed then.
Yeah, and they went out of fashion in about the 1940s, I think.
Still, make sure you pour half a bottle of scotch in there at some point and, at least have like a Lady of the Night squat over it for a bit so it can be sated.
I feel like it might be a better option if I just sort of threw firecrackers in there every so often. Almost like wrangle my creative mind into just one area so I can try and flush it.
Like training a horse?
I'll go with training a horse because I know literally nothing about training horses, and I assume you might have to do it with firecrackers. If anybody out there, if any of our viewers know whether or not it's a good idea to try and train a horse with firecrackers, then please let us know.
Or don't.
Or don't. Just shout it into the wind.
Yeah, just stand on the edge of a cliff, shout at God. Anyway, my idea book. So I write things down in here, and I thought maybe every week we could go through and we could discuss some of the ideas that I've had. Now, keep in mind that when I am in my tired state of mind, I consider myself to be a different person. This isn't me. This is some crazed lunatic. Nothing like me at all. So, yeah, I heard that. Anyway, so I was just going to flick through and run a couple of things by you. We're going to flick through very, very quickly, though. There's going to be some things that they're not going to make a lot of sense, but, that will come to one every week, maybe, that we like and we can extemporize on. However, I know nothing about these. I can't tell you what these ideas mean. I can't tell you the rationale behind them. But... oh god, I realise there is no but. I'm literally just going to tell you about them.
At the moment, it's sounding a lot like your regular ideas.
How can I tell if I'm awake or not? Anyway, it doesn't really matter.
If at any point when we're looking through this pre-dream, not dream book, whatever we're calling it, if at any point it says, do a podcast with Phil that makes literally no sense, then I'll know that this is just your idea book.
It doesn't say that now.
Yeah, that seems about right.
Yeah, so, to begin with, I have a list of things I talked through with my significant other at the beginning of this, which I can't even go into. And those ideas are a lot better than mine, so, yeah, we're going to have to ignore those for now.
Well, I mean, legally, you can't talk about those.
Because she'll sue me.
It's weird to me how you two keep suing each other back and forth. It doesn't seem like a great basis for a relationship to me.
It is the only foundation for a relationship.
Is your shared love of litigation.
Damn right. Who doesn't love a good... I mean, Disney, they love a good litigation, and think how long they've lasted.
I'm not convinced that litigation is all they do.
I'm pretty sure that's the only thing they do.
I feel like they do some other things. I couldn't tell you exactly what right now, but I'm pretty sure that they do more than just sue themselves and other people.
I don't think you're right on that one.
Okay, well, we'll table that for another time. We'll agree to disagree for now. Again, if any viewers have any information about what it is that Disney do, please let us know, or don't.
Don't. Anyway, I'm skipping past a thing in my book here. It's just a little picture I've drawn of a man. We're not going to talk about this one for too long, but there are headphones shooting out of his ears, like with little rocket jets on them. And underneath I've written anti-advert headphones.
As in, they just shoot out of your ears as soon as they hear an advert.
I mean, I assume. I mean, I'm not sure. I'd have to consult the book. But I'm not going to do that. I am going to continue. And on one page here, I have an image of a city that stands above the wastes.
Okay.
And it's twisted, and it's tall, and it's made of metal and girders and scrap. Things that have been twisted together in a weird, horrific structure. And at the top of the structure, there are two fires that burn, that can be seen across the world. And they burn, and they are bright, and they're sort of located where a head would be. And essentially, what's been constructed here is a city that is in mine own image.
It's a city shaped like you.
Yes.
I mean, it doesn't really surprise me that that is in your head when you're going to bed. I mean, the ego on you is just outstanding.
I thought it was a good idea. Well, not a good idea. I thought it was an idea.
It was an idea. That is the truest thing I could say about it without being really hurtful.
And this seems to stand, like, I'm not entirely sure, but in the background I've drawn some mountains and some trees, and they're like knee height in comparison.
So it's pretty big.
It seems to be quite large. I'm not sure if it's one of those things you could see from space or not, but it's definitely a sizable thing. Think of a city, turn it on its side, and it's that tall.
I think it speaks volumes about you that one of the thoughts that's in your head as you're trying to go to sleep is, what if there was a city shaped like me that you could see from space?
And there's no mouth, but there does seem to be a huge sort of maw. And it seems like I've set up some kind of sound system there, because I've written almost like in a speech bubble, you know, where you draw things in a speech bubble. It's not in a speech bubble, it's just sort of kind of like lines coming out, like to indicate this is emanating from a certain place.
Yeah.
So it's not speech so much as just noise coming out. And the noise just seems to be... And then next to it, it's got brackets 24 HRS.
So 24 hours, we assume.
I think so, yeah.
So there's just that noise coming. I mean, that's the noise you make first thing in the morning, generally.
Essentially, yeah.
Don't ask questions about how I know what noises Theo makes first thing in the morning, viewers. Just go with it.
Just go with it.
And that's blaring out 24 hours a day. Do people live in this city?
Oh, yes. A lot of people live there.
Do they all look like you?
You can't really see anyone, but
Is this some sort of, as if Eddie Murphy did dystopian future film where every single character was played by him, but it's you instead of that? And then all the people just walk around, and when they try to talk to each other, they just go, Theo, 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 Theo. And the other one goes, oh, Theo, 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 Theo. And then they all just have sex. Is that what this image is leading to?
No, but I wish it was. That'd be brilliant. It'd be like a whole race of people, but they're just essentially Pokemon versions of me. No, but I have sort of drawn a version of my face that I tend to draw, and I'm doing a cartoon version of me, and it has got like a speaker coming out of again where the mouth would be, and it looks like there's like a camera lens sort of like coming out in the middle of the head,
right?
And I've put an arrow and a little thing coming off that saying security system. So it does seem to be that there is surveillance of the entire population of the city, but the cameras are shaped like my head.
Do you exist in this world that you've created? Are you sort of like the CEO of Theoville, just sitting in your own head trying to avoid the fire? Jesus Christ, I want a therapist or something to listen to this so badly. I think I want to have you sectioned, I think.
No, but the fires are like, I can't tell if they're essentially, you know, like we're just burning trash. You know, that's just where the dump is, essentially. It's in the eyes of the city, just burning. Again, it seems to be for all time. Or if that is where, like, the main reactors are, this is like a sort of like where the energy comes from to power the whole place. It's not entirely clear. I don't think there's a sort of like, you know, man at the top of the skyscraper, you know, who rules supreme kind of thing going on necessarily. But coming back to the security system, there does seem to be a kind of, and again, this is very crudely drawn, but it's sort of like Do you remember Robot Wars?
I remember Robot Wars vividly.
Do you remember Sir Kill-a-Lot?
I do remember Sir Kill-a-Lot. I remember looking into his cold, dead robot eyes and knowing what fear was for the first time.
Well, I seem to have... What's the word I'm looking for? When you take something...
Stolen.
Yeah, I haven't stolen it.
Plagiarized.
When you sort of like adapt something. Appropriate. I've appropriated that sort of look.
/stolen/plagiarized.
There we go. And it looks kind of like that, except there's like a minigun on one arm, and it's got like a clawed kind of hand on the other rather than a big snipper thing. Or no, it was Jaws of Life that he had on one, right?
Yeah, and a big lance in the other one.
So it's kind of like that, but I think it's quite large. It's essentially a security robot that looks like me, that has tank treads. And again, they seem to be making the same noise that the city is making. And I also think the heads rotate.
All the way around.
All the way around. But they seem to patrol around the place. Making that same noise constantly, just...
Can I say one thing about all of this?
Go on.
This all sounds like something that a psychotic child would do. If you had a child and your child started drawing these pictures of a giant city made of twisted steel and fire that looks exactly like them and has some kind of dystopian future security system that allows them to observe all inhabitants of the city, and they have security robots that also look like a cross between them and Sir Kill-a-Lot, you would be looking around that child's bedroom for like cats that they've killed. You would be looking for trophies from whatever kind of creatures they've just twisted apart, like warm bread. You would just be looking for the trail of violence and destruction that will inevitably follow this child. And you are in your mid-20s.
Isn't that the law? Like, over the age of 18? Not the state's problem!
I think so. But at the same time, I think you're a dangerous man and something should be done.
What, like I have to be stopped?
Yeah, I didn't want to say it, but I have sort of twisted this whole podcast into essentially an intervention / police sting to, catch you and put an end to this.
Well, I think we need to adapt the rules and get this, put down in stone. I will allow you to make the changes for yourself.
I'm going to do it all in caps because that emphasises my point. Theo must be stopped. The podcast will only end when the dangerous maniac...
Aw, that's a little bit harsh.
...known as Theo is caught and brought to justice / murdered in a hail of knife stabs. Because we don't do guns over here in Basingstoke, really. A hail of knife stabs of your own design.
There we are. I'm not entirely sure how that will work, but I've probably got something in this book somewhere that relates to this, so...
Oh, I would imagine that you have a drawing of some kind of contraption that you press a button and it stabs you 1,000,000 times. It wouldn't be too far from the realms of possibility that you've introduced by reading things out of this insane book that I think will be used as an example in psychology classrooms for the next millennia.
I don't like to tie you with the same brush, but I feel that this podcast in and of itself is an incrimination of sorts. I wouldn't say that you're now an accessory, but it's not so much that you're colluding, but it's like you've seen into the eye of madness, and it has forever it's sort of your responsibility now. I like the way that you've taken a proactive response to this. I think if you succeed in your plan, history will see you as the hero. but I think that there'll always be what some historians will refer to as a dark question mark over your exact kind of nature and involvement.
I mean, there are certainly shades of grey to the case as a whole. And I think that's what the Netflix documentary they will eventually make about this whole thing will prove.
What, it will prove that there are shades of grey.
Yeah, because people will be unsure at first, but then the documentary will happen and they'll go, oh no, there were definitely shades of grey to this.
Yeah. So over the question of ambiguity, of a moral ambiguity, this will confirm definitively the answer to be ambiguous.
Yeah, because there'll be people who are aware of the case and go, oh, he was definitely an evil. There'll be others going, he was possibly the biggest hero since Hercules, also is way more handsome. No one will be in between. Absolutely no one will be in between. Like 100% of people will fall into one of those two camps. I'm not saying they're going to be even camps. They could be completely unbalanced, but then the Netflix documentary will happen and it will be confirmed to everyone who watches the Netflix documentary, which I believe is everybody in the world. Everybody in the world watches Netflix these days.
I don't necessarily think that's true, but the amount that it gets spoken about, you might as well take it as read, I think.
So then everybody in the world who has seen the Netflix documentary will then finally accept that there are shades of grey to my character.
Yeah, people will throw down their placards, some of which have your face on, and others of which have your face on but big cross through it. They'll just throw down their signs that they've been waving around, and then, you know, with a degree of moral certainty that they've never had before, they will throw up their arms and say, well, I don't know.
Can I confess something to you?
What?
It's always been a dream of mine to have my face on a placard with a big cross through it. Possibly with a message next to it saying, none of this.
I liked the lack of words, like the idea of your face on a placard and then another placard with your face and a big line through it was enough to express all that needed to be known about that situation.
Well, I quite enjoy the addition of text that adds nothing to the discourse.
Okay, I see, yeah.
It just says, none of this, or down with him, or maybe just even no.
No is pretty good. How about on the positive side? Can it just say him?
You can say him. It can say more handsome than Hercules, whatever they want to put. Preferably the more handsome than Hercules thing, but really just whatever they want to go for with the positive one. Maybe just like a tick.
A tick. Oh, I like that.
Yeah, a big green tick.
Yeah.
But not over my face like the cross would be, just next to it.
Like a smaller person is holding a slightly shorter sign with the tick and just follows the face around.
Yeah, you know, it's essentially like someone at school has submitted the image of my face for marking and the teacher has gone, yes, that is correct.
Maybe like a little smiley face, or, you know, when your teachers used to leave you a big kiss on your work? Like in the lipstick, lips are like pressed up against, you know, your spelling test.
I feel like we should potentially leave that point here because it's going to reveal things about you that I don't think you want in the public eye until the Netflix documentary happens, obviously.
Like that I went to school, for instance.
Yeah, we like to maintain our image of being completely uneducated. It's important for our niche.
Our lack of niche.
Or lack of niche, whichever one we're going for.
We have now moved on to the film review.
Yes.
This is now the film review podcast. The bland, vacuous attempt at mainstream appeal that we're going for here. I'm not going to throw the gauntlet at your feet, but I'm just going to kind of lay it gently on a coffee table for anyone to pick up. For anyone, you know, who feels free, that feels like this is the time for them to express themselves. If you would like, I can turn the film review over to you.
I will get that gauntlet. I have that gauntlet now. The rest of them are dead. Sorry. I'm going to write some stuff down in my pre-dream book.
I think you should, yeah. And then we can share it and relive it.
We can.
And make it come true.
We probably won't, because I'll be in jail by then.
Well, yes.
So, my film review. This is full disclosure right now. I haven't seen this film. I have seen the trailer. I have no desire to see the film, but it's sort of like a speculative film review. I'm reviewing what I believe I would think of it. So this is my speculative review of Michael Bay's 13 Hours, The Secret Soldiers of Benghazi. This movie dribbled out of the screen like the disappointing climax of Donald Trump's wet dreams. I'm concerned that I might be a traitor because I disliked all of the characters, but some of them had beards, so I guess that's something. 3 stars, no funny bits.
I did have to double check to see if this was even a real film, and I am shocked to see that it is.
It is. It's apparently very big with the whole pro-war crowd. It is about an incident that I have literally no knowledge of. It might be my own lack of education about what Benghazi is, but apparently it's a real thing that happened, and it involved big men with beards and guns doing all shooties and saving the world from them damn Arabs.
Well, I suppose it would be not in the spirit of the podcast if we revealed our political leanings.
I feel like I might have revealed mine a little bit.
I don't know. I think it's fair to say that by just identifying the fact that there are people who are pro-war, that's not aligning them with any particular nation on this planet, specifically in the West. That's not pointing the finger at supporters they may have in our own country, which we've never stated. It's not necessarily pointing the finger at certain groups who want to contrive any excuse not to get certain people elected to certain high office in their country and are attempting to obscure facts in a way to meet their own agenda at the expense of actual investigations into war crimes. I'm sure there's nothing like that in there. I mean, we can all take that as read.
I voted for Mitt Romney.
So did I.
Fuck.
I don't want to do my film review now.
I think you should, because I feel like I've lowered the tone.
I think I'm gonna change your film review.
Okay.
I'm gonna change it to, because based on what you said, I don't think the score you gave it was reflective of your comments. And this is something I'm told that editors do all the time, so you have to be okay with it.
Okay.
Right.
I never said what the 3 stars were out of.
Well, this is what I mean. So instead, I'm gonna change that 3. I'm going to add a little line on the top and a little line on the bottom to make them both bits of the 3 nice and round. Do you know what that is?
No.
That makes it 8.
8 stars, no funny bits.
Yeah.
Okay.
That score is reflective of what you said. I think that is a more appropriate score that potentially should be given to every film we talk about as a potential funny joke. But not a joke, because we're not allowed those.
We don't do jokes.
No, we're not allowed jokes. In fact, I may cut this bit. There is also a joke where every time I say I'm going to cut this bit, I don't cut it.
It's one of those pretend jokes that people think is funny.
That, again, is a perfect, subtitle for this podcast. That is perfect.
I'll go with that.
Right, I'm going to be honest, I don't think I'm going to do my film review this week. I think I'm going to save it for next week.
I think it's important that you do. I'm not sure it could follow my amazing film review of the shooty blam blam gun film.
Yeah, also I think my film review is reasonably incriminating as well. And I don't want to get hate mail. And from that alone, we're sort of on the radar now because we mentioned a certain nation's more sort of fanatical political groups.
Would you say that the so-called G-men are now joining forces with the Autumn Children to try and come find us?
I kind of thought that was going to be an inevitability. When the government finds out about the city that looks over the wastes, I mean, that alone is hot shit that they're going to get right on top of and steal all my blueprints.
I believe we are now very much, as they say, on the grid.
Oh, I wanted to live off the grid.
I did as well.
We haven't really tried very hard.
No, I pay council tax. So that's pretty much just on the grid.
You're on the electoral roll, you sort of...
I sold my personal details to the government.
I sign up to a lot of newsletters and mailing lists and use my real details. And whenever someone comes up to me in the street and asks me if I'd like to donate, I say no, but I will give them all my details, including name and phone number and real address and next of kin and bank details.
You did also invest in that fairly sizable nationwide billboard campaign that was just every billboard pretty much in the country was covered with your personal details.
Yeah. got burgled a lot.
That will happen.
Well, this can only be a good thing, because if G-Men are kicking down my door, then that means that burglars will probably be scared off. Unless they sort of team up in a sort of like law enforcement teams up with the crime gangs scenario that I think happens in real life, maybe, or I've just been told this will happen in certain films.
That perhaps someone, one of the robbers becomes an informant of sorts.
Or one of the cops goes in undercover, but then loyalties are split. But then instead of having to choose between two sides, the police and the criminals, just recognise their different approaches to oftentimes the same problems, and they shake hands and just sign something, a contract that says, okay, you can do your thing, we'll do our thing, let's just go our separate ways. And then they have a barbecue together.
The big police crime barbecue. It's an annual thing in Basingstoke, isn't it?
I mean, not to get political again, but isn't that what we all want? We just want criminal gangs and the police just to, come on, guys, you can sort it out.
There's so much comedy potential for sort of light-hearted banter between the two groups of, bacon and sausages and things. Again, I want to point out that I didn't actually make a joke there. I alluded vaguely towards a joke. And it would have been a bad joke anyway, because the whole police bacon thing is overplayed.
I think that would be nice. That'd be nice to have, real life mimic art a bit. We don't like the sweet and saccharine endings to our narratives where things are wrapped up in a neat and tidy way and catharsis seems to reign supreme. But when it comes to organised crime and the police force, I think that is an area where, it wouldn't go amiss. It'd be nice to see those two groups just getting on for a change. Who's to say who's going to broker that peace deal? It might be me. It's going to be me.
It's going to be you. You have so much experience with litigation with your partner.
Well, yes, of course.
You have an in-depth knowledge of the law, I believe. Except dog law, you're not so much up on that.
And we are a perfect microcosm of this whole thing, because I sometimes sell stolen contraband, and she is a police informant. So we're sort of, we're on the two sides, one v the other. We're sort of like a Romeo and Juliet kind of thing. Oh, they didn't work out stuff in the end, did they? They died together.
It's always interesting to me when people compare their relationships to Romeo and Juliet, because unless they're referring to, and this will end with both of our deaths, then fine. But generally speaking, probably not a great comparison.
Okay, I think our relationship is more like Mercutio in another universe where he just got happily married and settled down.
Or your relationship is slightly like The Departed, but everyone is fine at the end.
Yeah.
Like they all just chill out and have a beer together instead of shooting each other in the face and body.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. What if Martin Sheen and Jack Nicholson just sat down, had a beer, worked it all out, just hammered out the details, and both walked away? They know where they stand. They're not going to interfere with one another anymore. They're not going to cause trouble. No petty fights over what they should and shouldn't be doing on whose land. They can just work it out, and, no more innocents will get caught in the crossfire. And really, isn't that?
Was there more to that sentence?
No, that was the end.
I think that's where we should end the podcast.
Yeah, there was a quandary I come up, but honestly, I have nothing.
I feel like there were points during the podcast as a whole where it was very clear that we had literally no idea of direction.
Yeah. What was the name of this week?
Types, I think.
Oh, God, that's going to be difficult to work in.
Types.
I think my original point was, by types, I think I mean categories. And the categorization of things, be they objects or people or concepts. And I don't think I've ever really been one for categories. And by that, I mean I love categories. But they're bullshit.
You enjoy categories, but they're bullshit.
Yeah, because they don't work. And in this case, for instance, we try to divide the criminals and the cops into two different groups, but those categories turned out to be based on prejudice.
Yeah.
You know, old blood.
An important thing to remember is that life, the world, is not black and white. There are shades of grey.
And brown.
And we don't even need an in-depth Netflix documentary to tell us that there are shades of grey in the world. You needed to know that there are shades of grey about me, but not about the world. Things in life don't fit into neat categories like me being handsomer than Hercules or an evil bastard.
I think you are right, yeah, because categories, divisions, boxes, these sort of boundaries, they're not real, man. They're not really there. It's just the system putting that into our minds. And your human brain, in order to obtain knowledge and accrue information, it has to recognise patterns and make these snap decisions very, very quickly in order for you to function. In order to actually interpret the world around you in any meaningful way, you need to kind of have very prejudiced ideas about what's going on in the world. So that's all that is. You know, you don't need that.
This seems like the pitch for some kind of video art piece. Just the word categories and then the word prejudice. And then like footage of like the Rodney King riots. And then just you. And then me with a tick next to me. And then me with a cross through me with just down with this sort of thing written next to it. And then a flaming twisted metal city shaped like you. And then a message that says, "This is what we will become." And then the end of the film. But it's just playing on repeat in some gallery in Soho. And people who button their shirts all the way up to the top just look at it and go,
And in many ways, that is a type of person.
It is. I've gone against my own opinion there, and I have categorized someone as a prick.
So you are the art.
I've always believed that I was art.
Yeah, and maybe we should put that into the film. It's just you with your shirt open with "I am art" written in jelly on your body.
I feel like that might be too incendiary. We've discussed previously about the sensuality of my presence. I think it would be dangerous to show that sort of thing in public.
Isn't art meant to be dangerous?
Yeah, but I don't think it's supposed to induce mass rioting.
Okay, fine. Instead of that, in Tate Modern Somewhere, I'm going to get a Muller corner, eat it all, and then put it upside down. And I'm just gonna crunch up just a little bit. And then I'll walk away. And that will be there instead.
And then I will run into the same room with a Sharpie and write the word poverty on it.
I think we should just do that.
All right, that's a scheme.
I am now leaning back in my chair making chair noises that's going to be picked up on the audio. That means that I don't give a fuck anymore.
Much in the same way as last week, there is a lot of extraneous noise on my end. I dropped something at one point. Again, I did this noise with my pen against my glass.
I've still got my jelly here.
That is fair enough. I made a lot of noise, but you did eat jelly on the podcast.
I'm eating it now.
Take that, the internet.
Yeah. It's not that good.
Right.
I swear that jelly has got worse since we were children.
Commentary. Is this a premise for a terrible stand-up act that you're doing? Have you ever noticed how jelly is worse than when we were children? Boo! Get off!
Because that
I hate you.
It's the sign of a good stand-up. Ending a bit of an observational comment with the phrase "then when we were children."
The only way you can make it better is if you end with the phrase "am I right?" Right. That's quite enough of that bollocks.